All right, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to this Clubhouse event. Your energy, your health, be responsible with empowering solutions. All right, I would like to start by raising the vibration in the space we are in now by calling for the highest possible vibration and calling for the truth to come forward into our discussion so that the truth can be seen, heard, and spoken, and that we all be in that frequency of truth and have nothing but the truth. Should I call for the divine feminine to bring balance back into our world, showing us the way through honor, respect, and gratitude, and calling for the highest possible vibration? I now ask for everyone to take a sip of water, as water holds memory, and ask for the water to hydrate our brain and body. Now take a deep breath in. 3, 2, 1, and let it all out. And take another deep breath in, bringing in peace, joy, gratitude, and life, and exhale out, releasing all stress and all worry, all that does not serve you. And like in Veritas, everyone, I call for the oneness and truth of the information shared by each and every one of us on this call, calling in that frequency of truth so that we all can experience all that is truth, as it is our purpose to bring forward the truth so that we all can benefit from this information shared with honor, respect, and gratitude to you all. The greeting in Lakesh signifies unity, where everything is related to one another, where everything and everyone is connected. It is the idea of community, where we can share with one another our ideas, goals, and aspirations so that we all, as one, can benefit and thrive. And Lakesh is that declaration in which we are clearing our spaces, the space we're in now, so that we may be able to bring forth a truthful, elevated, and enlightened discussion this evening, clearing away those thoughts that we tend to pick up and carry with us from our everyday life experiences. The words En Lakesh in Veritas is a powerful affirmation that assists bringing clarity and a greater understanding of truth to all who are present and to all who are listening. Our words have power. So let us remember and decide to use our words carefully, using words of upliftment, encouragement, enlightenment. By doing so, as a collective, we will help us to transform our spaces and places into higher frequencies and better experiences for each and every one of us here, as well as for those others who we touch. So, En Lakesh in Veritas, everyone, with honor, respect, and gratitude. Before we begin, I'd like for everyone to hold your water in your hands. And I now ask for everyone here, with intention in mind, to send the frequency of En Lakesh to your water. And then take a sip of your water. We are 70% water, and water holds information and memory, thereby assisting in incorporating this elevated frequency of En Lakesh into our cells and into the subatomic space within our bodies. It is all about quantum physics. By doing this technique, it will allow for the ease and flow of the information we'll be sharing with one another here this evening. I just want to remind everyone that you can access the recording from this Clubhouse event and recordings from other prior Clubhouse events on Vimeo and YouTube by searching En Lakesh Studios. And please remember to subscribe if you have not already done so. You can also find more information and content on enlakeshstudio2.com so that you can keep up to date with the information and content that is continually being added. All right, everyone, let's get started with our topic for today. But before we move forward, I wanted to review, a few weeks ago, we spoke about the increasing shortages that have started to occur now, in particular, the shortage of baby formula. So just to refresh everyone's memory, I'll share a quick history of the commercialization of baby formula. So baby formula was first commercially manufactured in the 1860s. So, just keep that in mind, and you have to ask yourself, so what did people do before then to feed their babies, to nurse their babies so that their babies would survive? There were many versions of the baby formula created over the years using cow's milk, wheat flour, sugar, soy. And now these ingredients have been identified as allergens to many people. Casein in milk, gluten in wheat, sugar, soy that is genetically modified. But the one thing that they were not able to figure out is how to duplicate the mother's antibodies that is typically transferred over to the baby when nursing. So over time, with the development of the several different forms of formulas, that they eventually caused significant illnesses in babies, which led to the government passing an Infant Formula Act in 1980. So the only issue that occurred is that what a lot of these governmental agencies is that it failed to share the alternatives to people that they could offer to their children: rice milk, coconut milk, goat milk, and even camel milk, which has been found to be very medicinal. Of the Sun even has a formulation called sustenance that can be used to supplement baby formula when given in the proper proportions, just as you would do with any other formulation. So many women in the past created their own baby formulas using different ingredients, and the children turned out to be fine. And there's always been a solution to every problem that exists. And the care of our children is no different. Women have played an integral part in man's survival. We would not be here if it had not been for our mothers birthing us into this world. There is such an imbalance in our world, and we have to look at how we can support the feminine cause to bring back that needed balance in our world for man's survival and for humanity. Mothering, nurturing are tasks that are of utmost importance and is most honorable. And I give much, much gratitude to all the women out there, as they are the representation of life on earth, women. To all you women, I give my utmost respect and gratitude. So this brings me to our topic today. So today I have Syrennia, Stacy, and Stacy, who have agreed to share some of their valuable information regarding mothering, infant care, child care, along with mother self-care, which is extremely important. I've also asked Tiffany to join us on the discussion as an educator and a mother herself, who took natural means to raise her own daughter, Jade. So ladies, thank you for joining this Clubhouse event. And I'd like to start with you, Syrennia. As an RN with experience in labor delivery, an herbalist, a person who works with energy, can you share with us some of your experiences in working with women going through their pregnancy, their birthing, and as well as aftercare?
Yes, Invocation Veritas. Thanks for having me, Dr. Delilah. Yes, I started out my nursing career in labor and delivery, and then went through the nurseries, the intermediate and neonatal nurseries, and then did some home care for babies and moms, and then did some other care outside of outside of the hospital with them following their cases as a case manager, and then to school. So I primarily worked with moms and children throughout my career. And working with mom, I've always been drawn to that. I mean, I loved it in school, and I love supporting moms and their infants, and it's just such a beautiful experience, to see, um, you know, the babies come forth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and for to support the moms during these times. It's not all, everybody thinks it's like always such a happy experience, but it can be very challenging because historically moms had quite a bit of support from families, but that has dwindled quite a bit as families have separated, and there's a lot, so many development of nuclear families that the families, the extended families that gave support, very hard, for the mom to feel supported in any kind of way. So it became, I noticed during my career, it became very heavily medical oriented, lots of
Mm-hmm.
interventions, lots of, it would be very rare that a mom would come in and want to have a natural birth, or, and if she did, then, people would be rushing her, or I had the privilege of working with some very good midwives, and other, one physician in particular who uh, was very supportive of mothers, but it became so heavily intervention oriented that people expected to come right in and get an epidural. They would come in the door. I want an epidural as soon as I come, as soon as I go into labor. And so then you lose the whole point of, you don't even realize the process of birthing. You lose the whole thread of what comes next with nursing and all of that. So
Yeah.
it lots of interventions, lots of problems, you
Yeah,
know.
I agree with that because when this is before I delved into energy work, and I was full into the hospital allopathic medicine. I was a junior attending when I had my children, my first child anyway. And it was daunting, like to have her and then you just went home. And even like the birthing process, I ended up having an epidural. Something went wrong there. I'd had, symptoms of preeclampsia. When I went home, I really didn't have any support, not much support, or telling me what to do and how to do things. It was just by phone. My mother lived in it, but wasn't close by. So it was challenging, and I did have a C-section. So just recovering from that, coming home with a new baby, that was challenging, and there's not a lot of support for that. I don't know, how it is nowadays, but I'm imagining it's similar, with maybe even, like you said, more medications offered to mothers as opposed to natural means. I had no clue. No one showed me. No one told
Right.
me.
Right. And even back then, I mean, because I've been in nurse quite a long time. This was back in the early 80s. And, moms, we were alarmed at the C-section rate being like between 18, like 18% or 19%, which we thought was high. But now, I mean, it's like in the 20s, and in some places in the 30%,
Hmm.
30% of the moms have C-sections, and then you have infections, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, the act of, the woman is not supported, the process is not respected, and many women just don't know what to do. I mean, when I would see them at home, they would just not, they would be in frazzled because they didn't
Hmm.
have support. They didn't have
So
any.
why would you go? So describe when you went to you did a home visit. Why did you?
I did home care as well. I
Oh,
did home
okay.
care services for moms and babies, and many of them, the babies end up having bilirubin lights and things like that, and complications, and that. So I would go and see them in the system, and most of them were it. The babies. Um, it was just so. It was all about intervention, and less about support, and more about making sure that everybody had these interventions, and it just felt so unnatural.
Impersonal.
Yeah, it
Impersonal.
felt impersonal and unnatural. And I mean, I did
Hmm.
what I knew, how to do to assist. I helped many people. outside of working in the hospital, birth their babies, support them. I would go in for family members and other friends who would call me and say, can you come and be my doula or be my labor and delivery nurse? And then help them after they had the babies and help them breastfeed. I became certified as a lactation consultant and things like that, and assisted. Always encourage people to breastfeed, but it's not something that's the norm. You know, um, it's still very, very much the same. My children, my youngest one, so 20, so I've been out of the particular inpatient arena for a while, but it appears, I mean, as I look, it appears worse than it ever was, you know.
Mhm.
And maybe Stacy and Tiffany can speak to that, but the support is horrible. The norm is not to have anyone support them at home. And so they're lost, and most
Mhm.
people don't live with anyone in their families. They don't live with extended family who can show them how to nurse and things like that. And so it's and lots of depression and things. So the energy factor is very strongly negative, for
Mhm.
babies as they come in with all of this medicine on board, and all of
Yeah,
these
from the mother,
monitors.
from the
Yeah,
mother, from the
right,
mother
all these
transfer over.
monitors and things like
Mhm.
that, and nobody even knows that they have a choice. you know
Yeah, I know the postpartum depression has significantly increased, in mothers. So, I think it plays a role with the lack of support that women have at home, like you're describing. If they had that support, then women won't be so depressed because they're like, okay, what do we do? What do I do with this little one? I have no idea.
Yeah, and there are some doula services that are starting to come, into play, and so that is something that they finally realize that women who have support actually do better, not only before they have the baby, but during labor and then afterwards, because our country is highly, I mean, our mortality, which is how many people survive, mothers and babies, is very low. I mean, the mortality is very high, the survival is lower, and we're supposed to be a heavily industrialized and civilized society, right? But very high, especially in the black and brown population, the have horrible. No, it doesn't even matter if they're educated or not.
Hmm.
You can be a physician, you can have a PhD, and your mortality is as bad as the person who had no care.
Right, right,
So the support speaks for itself. I mean, that speaks for itself, right? That speaks
right, right,
to
right.
how women are supported, or the lack of respect for women, for life, for
Yes,
gestation.
right. It's not put in place as a priority. You're
Right.
absolutely right. Now, Stacy, if you can chime in, because I know you have some experience mothering and doula. Can you explain to everyone the role of a doula,
Absolutely.
mother,
In Location Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude.
Kitchen Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude?
So I do serve in the role as a postpartum doula. I like to say that is mothering the mother. What was already stated is that the mothers are not honored, um, and as a result, that self care is not there, and the mother can't care for herself, so therefore she cannot care for her child, and
Mhm.
then it just becomes a snowball effect. And so, within the role as a postpartum doula, those home visits come into play. For some doulas, they do go into, helping to support the mother actually within the medical setting. So, maybe going with her to postpartum appointments. It can look a lot of different ways. From my experience that I've had, I would go into the house and just do a little light, cleaning around the house just because one mother that I had, she had a C-section and she was up and about 2 days after having the baby. And it was just like you're not healing. You're not allowing yourself to heal mentally and physically. So
Mhm.
I would step in to just, be that extra person for her because she did feel overwhelmed. And we know
Mhm.
how just feeling that vibration alone can just bring in so many other low vibrational feelings. So I would step in whenever I could. She had a daughter as well that was believe 2 at the time. So I would step in and we would play and we would have dinner. I would fix dinner for the family and I would prepare it and set the table for them so that they could eat together. Um, it's a lot of different roles. So it was interesting within this situation because she was preeclampsia. And so when I was with her, I'm not a medical professional, so I cannot provide any diagnosis or any medical advice or anything like that. But just seeing her was like, something doesn't seem right with you right now. Like, how are you
Mm-hmm.
feeling? And she was like, "Oh, I'm dizzy. I need to sit down." And I'm like, "Okay,
Mm.
we need to check some things. Like, check your blood pressure. Where are you at?" And when we read the the blood pressure,
It was
it was
really high.
startling. It
Yeah.
was it was just I advised her and recommended for her to go to the hospital immediately.
Right. Right.
Um, and
Right.
for her, it's kind of like, well, I can't go to the hospital because who's going to take care of my baby? I'm feeling my baby. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that. So that pressure of the mother needing to do everything and be present for everything adds another layer. So that's like raising her blood pressure even more.
Well, you
So
were there to kind of help dampen that because you were there to at least to watch her little babe, the child that she had at home because she
yes,
went to the
and
hospital, right?
exactly. And so with that role, when I'm mothering the mother, it's not just about the mother, like it's a family dynamic. So I was working with the husband as well. So I was speaking with the husband, like, she needs to go to the hospital. You need to step up here. I would advise you to step up in these ways. And he was very receptive.
Oh, good, good.
And so that made it easier because she saw his strength pushing her to get healthy and letting her know that the home front is going to be taken care of between him and myself. So
Mm-hmm.
that emotional support is so essential, and I think that's a piece that is missing for so many mothers, and
Mm-hmm.
that goes into that depression. I also suffered with postpartum depression, and just recalling that situation, it was more so like a feeling overwhelmed, not knowing how to ask help, not knowing the help that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what created that situation. So from that experience, I can relate to my mothers and I can help give recommendations about, different routes to take. So yeah, so that mother ended up going to the hospital, I think 2 more times after that event,
Mm-hmm.
because of nutrition. Like, she wasn't eating properly to nourish herself and the baby. She was a breastfeeding mother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a lot of education goes into it, and that's one of the big issues of that we have within babies and postpartum. A lot of the education starts before the baby's born,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
people are not aware of that. So then they're with the baby, and it's just like, I can't process anything additional. So a lot of it is me stepping in as a postpartum doula to give that education in a way that is not overwhelming, but is
Mm-hmm.
something that they can actually absorb to be beneficial. Um, as Syrennia already spoke on, our maternal mortality rate is 23.8%
Mm.
according to 2020 data, compared to other industrialized nations. The next nation is France, which is at 8.7, and it just decreases from there. So seeing those rates and seeing all the science that we have to supposedly support our evolution, we're missing the mark in that area. And as stated, for Black and Brown mothers, the rate is even higher. For Black mothers, the mortality rate is 3 times more than a white mother within the US.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that does go into the education, that goes into support, that goes into stigmas that are put out there. It goes into the generational stereotypes and lack of support. I remember hearing so many conversations about, like, oh, well, you shouldn't breastfeed because that's a sexual thing, and it's just like, the miseducation is real. It's a little bit too overwhelming. Um, but it goes into that honor aspect. Like, we are not honoring our bodies. We are not honoring the actual art of producing a child and birthing a child and taking care of a child. And it just goes into, we don't acknowledge the intelligence of our bodies.
Right.
Speaking to those interventions, like, yes, hospitals are ready. Oh, you want epidural? You want this? You want that? And it's just like, let me just sit and just be in process. And
Right.
that's
I
not
mean,
promoted.
the prep would make so much difference, with the different types of energy work that can be done, the different foods and so forth. If people had that education, they won't need so much medication that's offered in the hospital setting, and that's where like you guys come in, you and Syrennia,
Yes.
come in to assist and to educate. And that's the purpose of this clubhouse, to share with other people, share with people that there are things that can be done for mothers. You're not forgotten. You are life. You are bringing life into this earth, and you need to be respected and supported. you know so thank you for that. Tiffany, are you available to speak on
I
your experiences?
I am, yes, in Locution Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude.
Thank you, Severitas. Respect and gratitude.
Jade, I'm gonna be right here, honey, if you need me. Sorry, I just
Yeah.
wanted to step away so she doesn't develop the same issues that I developed.
Go ahead.
Because my mother's birth story became my birth story, and
Mhm.
I had it. It's fascinating that I had tremendous support. I had tremendous
Tiffany.
I had
Oh.
tremendous family support, tremendous support from my husband, from my parents. My husband was like, tell me what to do and I'll do it, but I was the type of person. It took a long time to get pregnant. I had to get in the frequency of being a mother to get pregnant. I worked a really long time to balance my hormones and had miscarriages and whatnot. And so when I got pregnant, I had a lot of fear built up that I would have another miscarriage,
Mm.
and then I had friends who had actually had stillbirths as well, and so I had fears around that. And then my mother, from the time I can remember her telling me about the birth story, was how painful it was and 300 stitches she had, and I mean, it was literally like, it was crazy, and I just desperately wanted this natural experience. I wanted to like pull the baby out of me in the middle of the ocean or in the field somewhere. I didn't want anything other than just the utmost natural, ideal, perfect experience. And I had just, when I was pregnant, is when I took my property clearing classes, my property clearing level 1. And so I was starting to really learn about energy and how to work with my spiritual committee, but I still had a lot of hangups and I still had a lot of my own internal fears and thoughts that I needed to work through. And I remember one day talking to Lota of the Sun and saying, I'm going to do hypnotherapy and this is going to be amazing. And I'm going to be able to meditate through the pain. And she was like, it doesn't have to be painful. It's just, you're going to get what you call for. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really understand it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea, but okay. And then I just kind of moved on. But boy, did I get what I called for, because my whole life, always felt like I wanted to feel everything. I was never going to have an epidural. I was never going to have any medication. I wanted to feel every single aspect of labor, delivery, pregnancy, the whole shebang. And so I basically had 3 people's births. I mean, I was in labor for 24 hours, natural labor. Then I ended up having to get an epidural. Then I ended up having a C-section. I mean, it was just like, and then it took me 6 months to get over the reality that the birth plan didn't go as I had wanted it to, and accept that I got what I called for.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that I'm realizing. And initially, I did have a midwife, and she ended up like a month before my due date having postpartum depression and was suicidal. And so
Oh
I
my God.
obviously had to not have her as a midwife anymore.
Right. Right.
That wasn't an appropriate frequency match. And so, one moment, please. That is beautiful. I'm so proud of you. Jade just painted a stone for the garden, and she's very
Oh.
proud of it. Yes, like a
Oh.
stepping stone. And so, but I was never. I was never really, I never really understood until after the fact, and until a lot of healing and understanding, how much we really do control our thoughts and our experiences by what we think. That I could have had a different experience altogether had I just seen it differently. Had I, and I wouldn't have had to go through so much healing on the flip side of it. And I really did. I mean, Loto said to me so many times, "You got what you called for, and you called for 3 birds, and you called to feel everything, and you called to have every experience, so you had every experience." I'm like, that is not the truth. And so I I really feel like what Syrennia and Stacy were sharing about the lack of support, but also the lack of education. We're not taught in this full as this full whole human. We're not taught what our options are, what our resources are. We're not taught the power and the divinity that we are as women. We're also not taught that what we can and can't, or what we can control with our thoughts, and how we can move into these other experiences. You can go inside and ask Daddy, honey. So it has I have come to understand that it was a story and the experience that I needed to shift into who I wanted to become as a mother and as a woman and as a human. But I tell a very different story to my daughter, than the fear and pain stories that I was,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you
I
know.
mean, that's better for
Right. And
for
I
the.
think that something else, this is not really what was talked about, but I just want to share this because it is what made all the difference in the world for me. When I spent 6 years trying to get pregnant, and I was living off the land. I had, stepped away from the traditional stresses of teaching in a high school setting, and I was growing, 600 garlic and 25 tomato plants, and I could grow everything outside in my yard, and I couldn't grow what I was trying to grow inside of my body. And I was eating natural, and I was, very healthy in my mind. But when I found Of the Sun and started learning about energy work, I remember Lota saying to me, "Oh, you want to get pregnant? You don't have to be taking all these hundreds of herbs that you're doing. Like, what do you, just get in the frequency of being pregnant. You popped yourself out of the frequency. Who are you spending your time with?" I was like, "Well, I'm spending my time with people who are either too young and don't want babies yet, or people who are too old and already had children and don't want them," because it was too painful to be around people who actually had, you know what I mean? Just because
Yeah.
of the miscarriage experiences I was having. And so she was like, "Just get in the frequency of being a mother." She said, "Eat some fermented veggies, drink some kombucha to balance your hormones for 6 weeks." And she said, "And spend time with moms and with people who have babies and with children." And so I did that. My sister-in-law had just had a baby, and then I went on a vacation with a friend and slept in bed with her and her 4-month-old child, and woke up in the middle of the night holding the baby's hand, and knew that I had shifted into that frequency. And I was pregnant 2 weeks later with Jake.
Wow. Wow.
And I thought I had tried but it was as simple as, a frequency match. And
Mm-hmm.
so anything in life that we want, we just have to get into the frequency of that. And, people say you become like the 5 people you spend most of your time with. And that's why, in offices, people are like, "Don't drink the water, everyone's pregnant here." Like stuff like that. And so, but it really is just this basic idea of like attracts like.
Yeah.
And so that's something that, had it been shared with me, earlier, I feel like I also would have, well, it was my journey, but
Yeah.
maybe she came when she came, right, and was supposed to come,
Right.
um,
Right. Right.
but
Oh,
it helps a lot of healing for people, I have found, who are trying to get pregnant and can't. It doesn't have to be as hard as people make it, and they don't. I started down the intervention road too. I was like, "Oh, guess I have to do in vitro, guess I have to take hormones, guess I have to do," and then
yeah.
it just, none of it felt right, and so I stopped all of it. And then, sure enough, is when I learned I just had to hang out with moms and babies.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends who went the IVF in vitro fertilization. And so and spent thousands of dollars on it.
Right,
You know,
right.
so I agree that there's a simpler way of doing it.
And there's
Now,
also an age situation. Like, I was 40, and everyone,
yeah,
like, from the
right.
only reason we started trying to have children 6 years prior was because of fear. you know,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
oh
there's a
my, I'm
lot.
gonna be too old.
But a lot of mothers, they're mothers that are older or have, want to have children because they put their careers
Right,
first, and then and then trying to kind of align themselves with the workforce, the demands of the workforce, and then they're like, oh, I want to have a baby now, and they're like 40, and then they're in fear that they
right,
won't be able to conceive because they have all this documentation that the older you get, the fewer eggs you have, the
right.
less
Well, and
viable they
you're
are, all these stories.
pregnancy. I mean, that's what all of my um, pregnancy notes. They're like geriatric patient, geriatric. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it didn't even make sense, but that's what we're told.
Right.
And also, I just have to bring this up real quickly. I started taking birth control at a very young age, and so it was also a very opposite frequency that I was putting out there. I was literally saying to the universe, I don't want to get pregnant. And so then all of a sudden I stopped taking it, and the universe is supposed to just be like, okay, now you want to. Like, I'm confused. For 20 years you've been saying
Right.
you don't
Right.
want to, and you've been like taking something to make sure you don't. And so, that's where that frequency shift really came into play as well, and sending that new message and having that new
Right. Right.
thought form. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So, Syrennia, I'm bringing it back to you. What would you say that you can tell women out there that they can do for themselves, going forward to help themselves in this whole process of pregnancy, the birthing, and postpartum after
Well,
birth?
I think the work that we do um, with frequency and with divine feminine. I think the calling for the I know that the calling for the truth book that call for the truth book that Laoda Rasul has written, tells the truth about why we're in the situation that we're in. Why women are undervalued and ignored, and you know treated poorly, and why they and how the world suffers for that. The
Mm-hmm.
entire world suffers if a woman is treated in a certain way and disrespected. Then the entire universe suffers for it, because of the imbalance, right? And so I would tell them to read the book. That'd be
Yeah.
one of the first things. Read the
Right.
book and
And
do some
empower themselves to
yeah,
know who that
see the
their
truth.
own divinity, know the
Right,
truth of their divinity and the power that they hold.
right.
Women are
Call
so powerful. We
Yeah,
can be.
yes, we are, and that's one of the reasons that we're treated in that kind of way, because when you know where the power is, and you don't you want to suppress that power, and you want to
Mhm.
have that power, and you want that's what's happening now, right?
Right, right.
And so the woman doesn't see. I ran into a young woman the other day, and she was undervaluing herself. She had been an attorney, and then she decided, she had a baby and she's been at home, and then she feels some kind of way, intimidated about going back into the workforce. But and I was telling her, I said, you've done something that is so wonderful, and I mean, you've helped to create a life and to nurture a life. That's the most wonderful and noble job, or
Hmm.
opportunity or responsibility. And then she started smiling, and because we're taught that something outside of ourselves, and that we're not good unless we are doing something else. You know,
Right,
the
right.
woman, being a mother's not valuable. Helping gestate a life is not valuable. And so I would you know, encourage people to read the book, or you know, listen to the book, and then to
Hmm.
see, right, that would help them to see their value, and us come together as women, to supporting each other. So those would be some of the things, and that's we can get a whole another thing about nursing and other things, but um,
That's the first and foremost.
yeah,
That's the
those are the
foundation.
first.
That's the foundation for women. I
Yeah.
agree. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Stacy, do you have any? words of wisdom with regards to what you would share with women now, knowing what you've gone through, what you know, and what you had to do working with other people, other women, mothers as a doula?
Absolutely. I would say step into the Ho'oponopono. Like I feel like that's swoosh for everything. Like,
Yeah.
um, and I say that because seeing where a lot of mothers are emotionally, stepping into that frequency would just give her, a little bit more of a boost. And then for the baby coming into this world, it
Yeah, the
just
baby will get that frequency when she's doing it too.
exactly. So, even just saying it to the baby, like once the baby's born, like it's gonna sink in so much quicker, and the baby's gonna just grow up in that frequency. So I would say that's one initial thing. I would say also one of your phrases: knowledge is power. Educating before, but even seeing the support that of the sun offers, like property clearing those interferences that are in the home before the baby comes into that space will
Hmm.
just allow so much more opportunity for that baby to expand and grow. Even advanced soul clearings, I just think about, like, if the mother is in a great place and has understanding of herself, and even when the baby comes, to have a soul clearing, because the baby is a soul, like that soul has some baggage with it. So if you can clear and start to really see and understand what's going on, I think that would just help, especially within the frequencies. So yeah, so knowledge, ho'oponopono, and really clearing interferences that are present within person, properties, because it's all consciousness. So those would
Hmm.
be my things.
Nice, nice, nice. Tiffany, do you have any more to add as
Well,
well?
I think they said it all, right? I think if you do that, you are golden. No matter who you are, no matter what stage of life you are in, no matter what you are going through, that about covers it. I think maybe, and also get DNA activated and your children DNA activated, and that and something else that I recently, I think I mentioned this one time on one of the clubhouses, that I recently discovered and started doing more research and have more understanding in now is the mathematical component of the universe and how that translates into us. And so every person I talk to now gets a numerology report from Of the Sun because, and every mother I talk to, because it's something that especially now, homeschooling or not, I mean, we're homeschooling and so it's helped, but just in a family dynamic, it understanding the numbers and the gifts, even with soul translation, that you have yourself have, but also that you your children and your spouses, or whoever you are around on a regular basis, it just helps to deepen understanding, and it allows for things, in my experience, to just flow more smoothly. Children seem to naturally step into and understand how they are supposed to be every day, whether it's supposed to be a calm day for them, whether it's supposed to be a very active day for them. They don't have any mental constructs that they try to push through if they're not supposed to, and but adults do. And so it's been very helpful recently for me. For instance, we have a future wedding, that a childhood friend wedding that we are supposed to go to and fly all the way to Ohio to, and it's this big thing. And my spiritual committee was encouraging me to look deeper into actually all of us going, and my husband's very intuitive, and he was like, I don't know, I don't really feel like we should just all go, maybe I should just go. And but Jaden, I really wanted to go. And and I sat with it, and then I just was like, I'm just gonna look at the numbers of the days that we'd be traveling and the days that we'd be at the wedding. And my husband's number than mine and Jade's. His numbers had to do with um, uh, events and socialization and new experiences and long, deep conversations with friends. And it was fascinating. And Jade's numbers, particularly on the day we were supposed to travel, had to do with her being supposed to be by herself and have a lot of inward time.
Mm.
And on the day of the wedding, it was supposed to be her being very calm, not a lot of distractions, spending more time at home. And then the side effects of these things are poor anger management. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh my, just that information in and of itself saved so many, situations and issues that could have arisen from, stepping into such a chaotic experience. And so, you know, I had been looking deeper into it anyway, but when I pulled the numbers in, it just became that much clearer of what needed to happen, what didn't need to happen. He can go, we can stay type thing. And everyone's fine with that. So, I mean, so it was just interesting.
Okay. Wow. That's so cool. I'm glad you mentioned that. Mentioned the numerology reporting and so forth. That because that can assist a lot of people
And
with.
it's something right now that I have found with all the moms I'm talking to, from people who are property clearers to people who are just understanding even what energy and frequency is, to then people who it's not even a conversation, that they're able to embrace yet. For some reason, everyone can embrace the numbers. Every
Mhm.
single person that I have talked to about this, no matter where they are in terms of understanding energy, keeps asking about more and wants to understand and get a report. So
Yeah,
it's just interesting.
I think people tend to respond more with something at hand in their
Right,
hand, a document. You
right,
know.
right.
So yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I wanted to add something else, Dr. Delilah, before we.
Yes, please.
Um, we have work to do. um, and I know we talk about Invocation Veritas, giving the Invocation Veritas to everything and everyone, and assisting people with understanding, sharing that everything is energy, because going into hospitals, there's a lot of negativity, and there's nothing good in the hospital that I recall,
Mm.
whether working or going there. Um, and so if people, the education about what energy looks like, what it is, that's everywhere, and then we're all connected, and everything is connected in consciousness. Maybe we can start with educating people about that, because like the hospital is the furthest thing away from what good energy looks like. So I'd say this is what's happening recently, is giving us an opportunity to re-educate people at home.
Mm.
Teach them the importance of, you know, like Stacy talking about, like home, keeping your home clear and doing Ho'oponopono and that. That's something they can do. That doesn't even really, they can do it on their own. They can teach their folks,
Yes.
around them. I mean, these are something we can do, and I think we can all have Ho'oponopono groups. We can all, give Invocation Veritas to the babies and to the things and to the trees, and teach our children how to do that. So we just have some educating to do, and
Right.
I'm up for it. So.
Right. Thank you for that. Yeah, we have several tools that are on our tool belt that we can help our environments and help to the environment for our children to grow in a more nurturing, healthy, prosperous type of environment. Right now our environment is toxic. Not just physical toxins, but there's just such mental toxins in our media, in our thoughts. That's why there's so much fear and depression and anxiety that exists. And so I agree with all of you with regards to working with the environment, and it's our contribution to our world so that we can make this a better place for our children and our legacy. you know so thank you for sharing that information. Does anyone have any questions or comments? This was really helpful.
Yesterday, Jade said to me, um, "Mom, why do you think I don't like hospitals so much? I just don't like them." And she has, like, in most people's opinions, you'd be like, "Oh, she has no memory of a hospital. She's only been in a hospital, during that traumatic experience."
Right.
you know, but
Right.
but it, so now I understand that I've worked to clear these things for myself, but I need to clear them from her too, because she was there as well, right?
Hmm.
Um and it's in her cells as well. And so it was interesting to see it from that perspective, and the understanding of what Syrennia just shared, giving in the catch to the and veritas to the babies, and to the mothers in this space. They are picking up on everything, whether we think they are or not, at every moment, whether they're inside of
Yeah.
us or they're outside of us. And I think understanding that thoughts are also energies. And so,
Hmm.
what we are thinking, all the more reason for, if mothers don't have support, to seek support, because whether you're saying it out loud or not, if you're thinking it in your head, you may as well be saying it out loud, whatever it is. And so
Right.
just having that, a way to, and that's the beauty of Ho'oponopono, right? It
Right.
shifts all of that within
Well,
us and
some
outside of
people don't
us.
even realize what they're thinking. They don't know what they're thinking. They don't know that they're thinking negative because they just got so numbed and used to that low vibrational thought pattern that they've held for so long.
Right, and even with what they're watching and listening to, like we'll
Yeah.
listen to a song on the radio, and Kevin and I'll turn it up, like, this is a great song, and we like we remember it, right, and we're singing it, and then all of a sudden Jade's like, it said the word hate, turn it off, we don't want to listen to this, and we're like, oh yeah. She's like, I do not want that on the radio. So, but if, it just passed us by.
Right, right, right. Because we got so numb to it and so used
Exactly.
to it. I was just wanted to bring up too that, bioenergetics, the scanning itself, that's a way to pick up, what frequencies are in your field that you may want to consider, working on, and helping to identify that so that you can clear them and have the opportunity to clear them, because there are solutions and tools that are available for that.
And Dr.
So, Stacy.
Delilah, I wanted to just add one other thing. So we kind of touched on how the birthing process is a natural process. And
Yes.
something that I was fortunate to integrate into two of my deliveries was water. Like the element of
Mm,
water was so, oh, I'm in so much gratitude. It helped with the labor process, the pain, but it just was gentle and it was just right because it was a connection back to earth. Earth was supplying me with what I needed to get through the process. And that fear aspect and frequency is fed to mothers so much. Like
yeah.
my last child, I birthed her at home, no interventions. And I just remember everybody being around me like, oh my gosh, we can't do this. No, we have to get to the hospital. It was like, but why? We know, I know what I'm doing. The baby and I were connected. We knew exactly what we were trying to accomplish, and we did just that.
Mm,
So
mm,
incorporating what is here available to us is so essential, and just trusting ourselves, I think, is something that is missed, especially with the divine feminine. So that's what I will
yeah.
leave with
Thank you
tonight.
for that. That's so important. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. On that note, I'd like to thank, you ladies. Another great discussion, learning valuable lessons here. Syrennia, Stacy, and Tiffany, thank you so much for bringing this information to us. I like to, on the note of whole responsibility and whole Ho'oponopono, I like to invite though everyone who is not aware of whole responsibility meditation sessions that's hosted by Enlica Studios on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So our next sessions are tomorrow at 6 a.m., 12:30 p.m., and 8 p.m. for 30 minutes. And join to tap into that power of Ho'oponopono and see for yourself how it can assist to shift your energetic frequency and landscape, and then as a result your life circumstances to shift them into something greater. I've also added a bonus session on Wednesdays, a 45-minute session for those die-hard Pono people, individuals, but at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you're looking for more information, you can find it on our Enlica Studios websites and YouTube channel, and please join. And I also like to invite people to the Call for Truth Divination, Divine Nation workshops using the Call for Truth Divination deck, the companion for the book, Call for the Truth book. And these workshops are given every Friday. Well, given every other Friday, excuse me, at 8 p.m. Eastern. And our next session is actually this coming Friday, September 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. So please join these sessions. They're completely free, and it'll be, they will help to shift your frequency. You get into a frequency that will help to nurture and help you shift into something that's greater. Then it's a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining. Thank you. Special thanks to Syrennia, Stacy, and Tiffany for joining on this wonderful discussion on mothering, nurturing, the divine feminine. I look forward to seeing everybody next week on Clubhouse, for some more insightful topics regarding rebalancing our energy and solutions. And remember, knowledge is power, and taking action on this knowledge is true power. So, en lakesh and veritas, everyone, with honor, respect, and gratitude.
In the
Veritas, honor,
Kitchen of
respect, and
Veritas with honor,
gratitude.
respect, and gratitude.
Veritas, honor, respect, and gratitude.